So I have a follow-up question to that, Dr. Shilpi. Have you seen any initiatives industry-wide for there to be deeper collaboration for initiatives such as the ones that you just mentioned? Or do you think that is something that is still a while away?
I think working with the technology partners brings in a lot of value. But when we look at in isolation, the different, let's say, the pharma or the academia or the other institutions that play a role in the discovery development process, like particularly for AI, I would say it's more of working in isolation at this point. But this is something that is definitely, I'm sure, organizations are realizing it and trying to make the most of it to develop things at scale, and that would be our blue sky.
Thank you so much. Bharnendra.
Yeah, so I think a lot of speakers today touched a lot of things, but I'm going to talk about infrastructure and interoperability. When you look at urban clinics, they do have network access and have access to platforms where they can do inferences. But when you think about rural clinics, right, we have to, one of the issues that I see is for rural, we need to have systems that would basically have inference locally, which means you need to have local compute that will basically help deploy models locally, like Gemma Med can be deployed 3.0 in a local compute, so that it can be used rurally as well, so that there is value to it. The second is, there's so much data that's generated rurally that, in my opinion, has not been ingested into the central systems yet. But forget about what Shilpi said, we don't have this closed data fabric that would basically give a data exchange between different silos of EHR systems, but that's a different topic. But at least in the rural side, we need to look at how to bring the data back so that we understand, what it is. So that's one aspect, right? The second is, regulation. When you look at regulation, and a lot of speakers touched about it, we need to look at, trying to implement a regulation that's in the infant stage. Right now, what I'm seeing a lot is manual documentation of controls, control implementations, and how these controls will meet data standards or system standards. I think today someone referenced about NIST. I think the system that they're talking about, the framework, is OSCAL. OSCAL is meant for IT systems. I think India should really look at taking OSCAL and basically looking at implementing that for healthcare. It's basically a crosswalk of healthcare controls and trying to make it machine-readable, machine-accessible, and trying to make near real-time assessment of controls so that you can move past regulation. Because regulation, in my opinion, takes 12 to 18 months at the best case, and maybe some countries it may take longer. We need to reduce that to months, and basically, with the human in the loop, with outcomes, we need to feed it back so that we are reevaluating the control assessment of these things, so that a point-in-time assessment is not good enough. We need to make sure that it's assessed continuously. So from my point, infrastructure, interoperability is first, and the second is regulation, especially looking at the speed of AI moving is one thing. It can be an excuse to say it's moving too fast, but we need to also adopt on the regulation side to basically use agents that can basically assess controls and be event-generated, event-based, that can detect some gaps in the controls, right? So we need to look at that side as well.
So a follow-up question to that. In your experience of seeing how something like this has either been rolled out globally or is in the process of being rolled out, have you seen policy influencers, policy think tanks that can today advise policymakers on how to do this more efficiently in a manner that makes it easier to scale and deploy these AI solutions?
Yeah, I mean, we can go back to NIST OSCAL, right? It basically started as a 3-year pilot 3 years back. There is the NIST, which is the government entity, but then there's a policy of how to accelerate ATO from, ATO is authority to operate, which is send something, a system to production, from 18 months to maybe a reasonable 2 months. So there is a carrot and stick, but then there is a global regulators that came together to build that IT authorization system. I want everybody to read it. It's NIST OSCAL. Take a look at it. It has representation from Germany, Japan, many countries. So it's successful right now. where authorization documents like SSPs are exchanged using machine learning data rather than human-generated documents. So it's a great case study.
Thank you so much for that. Shishir.